So welcome back. Welcome back to Juice. This is our third episode.
We got Chantel Rhodes.
Do I have to introduce myself every time?
Every time, because when the people are listening to us on our podcast, by the way. So we go live on Thursdays right now, and then we edit this.
You're right.
You can turn on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and listen to Juice. We released it on Monday, so we want all those folks.
She is absolutely right. She is absolutely right. All right, I am Chantel Rhodes. I am the co-host of Juice with my pal Cindy. I always like to say she's the smart one. I'm the cool one. Nevertheless, listen, being smart is cool, so I got to step my game up, which brings me here tonight because not only are we discussing things, we are learning, we are expanding, we are growing. So with that being said, welcome back. All right, now, this gentleman next to me, I mentioned last week a cool book called The Dating Cookbook, written by my big brother, Mr. Charlton Rhodes, who is going to break it down for us tonight. If I do my job correctly this evening, I'll get Dr. Cindy Banyai, who I love and admire so deeply and who has shaped my political and social standpoint a lot with just knowledge and education. I will get her and my big brother to fight. Now, before you say, if I do my job correctly, now before you go off talking about how Chantel is trying to incite a riot at the Seed and Bean Cafe. Shout out to Seed and Bean Cafe, where we're broadcasting live from. I need you all to understand how important these individuals are to me. Two of the smartest people that I know, but myself, like every other thinker in this world, will find themselves at a point where they're like, I don't know how to feel about an issue, or may just flat out say, I don't agree with the masses. I don't agree with the multitudes. And so two very powerful perspectives that I respect. My brother helped form who I am as a social worker, as an avid world traveler. I followed in his footsteps. So, when you see him out here, when you see me, just know that's him. And we are both a result of my beautiful mother, who is in our studio audience again tonight. So, brother.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you
Mic
for
check,
having me.
1 2 1 2.
Thank you for having me.
Get out the way.
Get cozy.
Yeah.
So
I thank you guys for bringing me on.
all right. So we got the dating cookbook here. And what I failed to see in this book is something that you taught me. And that was that you got to be hard on hoes. Now,
hard on hoes.
Listen.
Wait, I want to say that again.
But what that truly means, he was the first person that ever told me, Telly, you got to be hard on hoes. And what he meant by that is simply, you got to have a backbone in life. You can't just let people run all over you. You can't just come out here acting soft and stuff, because people will test you and they will try you and they'll just be comfortable with disrespecting you. And so, my brother, let's talk about it. Why you left that part out of the book?
I'll tell you the purpose of that book. This was something that started with a lot of conversations around the table like we are today.
Yeah.
And relationships are the core of the family and community. I'm a mental health therapist, and I would say 80% of my conversations are about relationship issues.
Okay.
Whether it's family, parent, child, sibling, marriage, business, any type of relationship creates the stressors of mental health typically. Every now and then you'll get a chemical component. ADHD, for instance, and anxiety can be linked to a chemical imbalance.
I got all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got all that from my first marriage.
But so relationships are my passion. Mental health is my passion. I'm here today not as a therapist. I'm just here today as a man to speak about some of the elements that I've written about, but just what I experienced in life. And I'll say before we even go further that I heard the episode that you guys did last week, and I was motivated. I was inspired. It was a fresh sound. And when
we doing our thing, man. We doing our thing.
Exactly.
When I heard it, I could not turn it off. I didn't want to turn it off.
Now, is it just because your little sister was on?
No, it's very hard to keep my attention because my attention span is very limited.
Yeah,
And I
same.
have to sit in sessions hour after hour and pay attention. So as soon as I'm off work, my brain goes 100 miles an hour. But when I heard you all, it was very just a fresh
Oh.
take on, and I know you all from the political careers that you have known Chantel since you were born. And as a little baby, we've always gone through life's turns, twists and turns together, and to see where you are, I'm very proud of what you're doing in the community, even beyond the election that just occurred. I also respect Cindy as well. You are someone who's always presented genuine, supportive to our family. I have never cared about politics.
Still
And I
don't.
will be honest today, I still don't care as much. I care more
Mm.
because
so-
of things that have taken place in my life personally and what my sister's doing. I'm going to always support. She mentions your name quite
Yeah.
a bit. And when I've heard that you're getting involved in our community, the Black community, as a white female, I do respect somebody who can be different,
Yeah.
be bold. I don't care what your political affiliation.
Yeah, and my brother is very interesting because, and we share ourselves with people. So last week, I believe we talked about a lot of what I see as an increasing amount of Black folk packing their things and becoming conservatives, right? So there is this combination of feelings that I want you to speak to, Dr. Cindy, on not necessarily it from a racial perspective, but a person who is apart from politics, but cares enough, but then don't know how to jump in and mesh that together. What would you say to Mr. Chuck Rhodes about the statement, I don't care about politics?
Yeah, this is what I tell my students at FGCU too. Everything is political. Not everything is partisan in the way that you want, and not everything fits neatly into those partisan boxes of Republican and Democrat.
Okay.
And this is where I think political messaging has gone off the rails,
Right.
frankly, because even according to the Supreme Court and the Republican Party of the state of Florida, they use Black communities as proxy for Democrats.
Yeah.
And that was constitutional, by the way.
And
And that was the 2012.
And first of all, let me speak to how aggravating that is. As a Black person, to make any move in this country, it seems as though, oh, they needed Black people to be a part. They needed an extra token, an extra this. It is so hard to just exist and to genuinely exist, but to back that up a little bit, right? So we know that we are facing a potential. Okay, the debt ceiling. I want you to speak on the debt ceiling and how
And the
we're about
crime.
to abolish Social Security, ban income taxes. There was some bills proposed. Maybe you can help me. See, don't try to act like I don't be hearing stuff on C-SPAN
No, you
and
are.
knowing.
You're picking it up on it.
Don't be, yeah.
You got it. There's a lot
But
of stuff.
anyway, but ultimately we look around, like you say, everything is political, but we look around and people are like, this is the result of voter suppression. This is the result of apathy among voters. And then how does that feel to hear that in this day and age? But just also, do you understand it? Do you get it?
I do. I get it because it's nasty. There's so much, like, we talk about the divisiveness too, right?
Yeah.
There's so much going back and forth, political characters
Yeah.
who want their vote and their voters, say and do audacious things.
Yeah.
And they're not connected with regular people.
Yeah.
We also don't have regular people trying to run for office because it'll put you in bankruptcy.
But yeah, speak to
But-
what you feel the reason that, like I said, we see more and more Black people packing up and becoming a member of that GOP, of that conservative side. Why? What do you think that is? Do you think that's the result of some kind of strategic hand-picked move that says, let me blah, blah, blah? What do you think that is?
So it's about 1 to 2 points.
Okay.
From Black voters who had been Democrat to Black voters who had become Republican.
Okay,
It's not
okay.
insignificant, but it's not a huge amount. I think part of it is coming to the fact that, of course, even if you are a certain demographic, that doesn't mean you are aligned with every person
That is a fact.
of your demographic on certain issues.
And that's been my stance. I'm like, I refuse to try to completely fit in when it truly doesn't sit well with me. And so there are some issues that, me being an LGBTQ Black woman with locks in her hair, living in Southwest Florida, people are like, this is your issue too. And I'm like, no, the hell it's not. I don't care as much about that issue. I don't have a strong stance on it, but sometimes you do feel forced to get in a box, right?
Sure.
And so I always have this respect and admiration for people, like my brother said, who step outside of that box, who say, you know what, even if I don't fully get why I'm outside of this box, it did not feel right being boxed in politically,
Right.
being boxed into because of my gender, because of my race, because of whatever the case may be. And so you have people out here wondering politically, wandering. They feel like, you know what, like you said, like Chucky said, it feels like there's this pandering to Black folks sometimes. However, we generally believe that the Democratic Party holds values that at least see us. We see us. We don't, and I don't know what.
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect,
and
but
frankly, there's a lot of conservative ideology that's very present within many Black communities, with Christian churches.
for sure.
You get the LGBT issues
Yeah.
are very challenging
Yeah.
in the Black community because there's some pretty conservative views on it.
That's true. So when I'm gathering people to honor Roe v. Wade, I don't really call on my Black sisters.
And that's a whole other.
I get more support for issues like that from white women. Same thing in Southwest Florida, at least with the LGBTQ community. Black people will more so shy away from those topics, from my experience, and advocating.
Are very entrenched within
Right.
the church. Different churches
So
look at
perhaps
this
we've
differently.
always been Black conservatives, and now we're just finally, I don't know, but
Yeah,
but-
but actually you're right. Like it's because ideology at this point is somewhat separate often from politics and the partisanship, right? Donald Trump did a whole lot on that too, by the way, kind of blew up all this stuff and made it more so about, and the messaging is about this party, this person, this concept instead of individual issues.
yeah.
And so we're in a very strange era, I think. People have always been complicated. And I think that when we say this party
Yeah.
is for this type of person and this party is for that type of person,
Yeah.
people get disenfranchised.
Yeah, it's so limiting.
Right. Because they're like, I don't really fit into that.
But Cindy, we have an obligation to try to do something about that. And that's why I bring,
I will
Let's
say,
get Chuck
Hey,
here.
bro.
yeah, this is the things that you shared are the things that have been on my heart, and why I care a little more now, because you're right that everything is political. I grew up in a mindset that whatever the outcome of my life is going to be, it's my responsibility to manifest and make that happen. And I will use tools and institutions
Yeah.
and information and whatever resource to get what I want for my life.
okay.
Whether it's religion, I'm going to pray for this thing to work for me. If it's politics, I'm going to vote for this thing to work for me.
But do you ever think it gets to a point where you have to almost, what's the saying, take one for the team, right? Because of course we talked about this too, being an individualistic person, but talk about doing things for individual versus doing them for the race as a whole. So when we talk about cancel culture, right? So there is so much of an emphasis put on people like Candace Owens, put on people like Kanye West, because it's like, how you gonna betray the people? How you gonna betray the culture? Byron Donalds, even. That's one thing that conversation has sparked something. At what point do you advance self? At what point do you say, nah, I got to stick with the people? How does that work with you?
Good question. The people, who are the people? Who do I identify with? I was an athlete. I played football, so that was my original introduction into how to work with other people and how to care about my teammate or my brother. And I am a man. I am a heterosexual man. I am a Black man. I am a college graduate. I am a father. I am a son, a brother. I am all of these different things. So when I go into vote, for instance, or choose a party or support an issue, which one am I going in with?
Ooh,
Which group of people am I going to band with? Because
Wow.
if I am a man, I have different experiences in this country as a Black man than a white woman or a Black woman.
definitely.
But I love white, Black, Hispanic, Asian. I love gay, straight, rich, poor, because I see people as people. And when
And
we go,
That's where it, like you said, Cindy, becomes complicated, because Audre Lorde, I believe, said, damn, don't make me divide myself. She didn't say it like that. She didn't bust out talking about damn. Shout out to Audre Lorde, rest in peace. But it's don't make me divide myself against myself. When I wake up in the morning, am I going to be woman first? Am I going to be Black first? Am I going to be feminist first? Am I going to be family first? And so even I can understand, like, when the idea of protecting children, right? So you remember, I spoke out, okay, we had the Don't Say Gay bill, for example. And so I spoke out, and we just bouncing around some topics. I hope to have my brother back with his professional and clinical perspective on things. We haven't even touched mental health, but we're getting there. But with the Don't Say Gay bill, for example, as an LGBT woman, I just didn't feel as outraged about that as people maybe thought with your gay self. You need to be angry that under third grade or you can't talk about this. And I was just like, I stand with the people, but this is one issue that I truly don't feel that passionate about. But it does divide me because I have to be so many people, and especially as a representative.
Right.
And as a therapist, you have to, I'm sure you have to figure out which perspective am I going to speak from? Am I going to speak from the faith-based perspective, the Southern perspective? Am I going to speak from a family perspective? Or do I want to be fair and just and say,
This is a mental health conversation now because in most of my sessions, I end up discussing core values. What you believe in may be different today than 10 years ago, and it should.
absolutely, if you're doing it right.
We should always evolve and grow. And when I think about politics, what made me care a little bit more, besides my sister running for office, is understanding that the vote and politics can be a vessel to help get things done and get things to be a little better. Maybe not fix all of my problems, but to speak on the Democrat versus Republican conversation, I was born a Democrat, you could say, because I was born a black man. And before I could speak, I'm sure the community around me supported certain political ideology
And told you this is what
that
we
may have
are.
fit
This is
for
what
that
we
time.
do, putting that stamp on us.
fit for that time. So for instance, I'll just be completely honest here. I believe that there are, when we get to race, that's one of the hardest issues to tackle today. And it will never go away in this country because it's obvious who has the majority of the wealth and the resources versus the other group. But
It's white people.
that's right.
Yeah.
White people have the majority of the
majority,
access
yeah.
and the
Just to clarify.
comforts of not worrying
Just to
about
clear,
being
in case y'all
profiled.
didn't know. In case y'all didn't know. And that's what we're dealing with.
I believe that there are racist Democrats and racist Republicans. And I believe that there are genuinely good-hearted people in both parties that care about humanity. But what I'm starting to pay attention to is that if one party has gotten the support for decades and our situation does not appear to be better, I may not be an example of that because I have high education and I'm successful. So nobody can on the surface say, if you're in America as a black man, you can't complain.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of others that do not have my story.
So agree or disagree? Do you think when it comes to the issues that black people face in America, just answer it straight out, I agree or disagree. Do you think it's because black folk ain't picking themselves up by the bootstraps enough?
No, I disagree.
Okay.
I believe that
Well-
we could possibly leverage the political parties. And the reason why I've started to pay attention to both sides is that black people, I believe, make up about 15%
Yeah.
of this country's population.
Yeah.
12.7.
12 point.
Look
Okay,
at,
so less.
see,
I know,
yeah,
I know.
around, we gonna have,
I like that. I like smart people.
15. That's why I
So
mess
that's-
with you, Cindy, right there.
So
That's
that's
why
a
I
small
like you.
number. So for one, if we're able to take just that 12% and say we will unify our vote
Yeah.
and give it to whichever party is going to help us.
Ooh, that unity piece
And
is,
that's not
that
easy
unity
because
piece is
I
strange.
don't,
So I've been holding back because I want to listen because we're talking about racial issues and white people are always being told that you've got to listen first. So I've been trying to do that. But I want to let you know I've been reading recently Ibrahim Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist. Have you read?
No, I've never heard of that book. See, we're gonna have to start a juice pot, a
We're
book
gonna have
club.
to do a book club.
We're gonna
We are.
have to.
We are.
We're gonna have to
So,
because we refer to books too much.
he's-
Go ahead.
Wonderful, by the way. And it's really what I appreciate most about it, if you haven't read it, is he is a black man, a professor, and he started with many of the same questions that you all are talking about right now. Went to
Right.
FAMU, what does it mean to go to an HBCU? But how essentially what he called the dueling consciousness, which W.E. Du Bois had
Yes.
called the double consciousness, is
Yes.
internalized within black folk. And so he talked about wearing like light colored contacts, thought he looked good, but
Right.
he realized that that was part of this colorism component. And he started to unpack some of the things about his own identity and perspective that were racist against his own community. So
Definitely.
it's been really
Ooh,
interesting.
and it's an ongoing battle because I struggle with whether to be palatable in certain circumstances or whether to show up as my full Black self or what is my full Black self. But going back to the political piece, Chucky, why do you feel like from a person who speaks to the disengaged in a way, politically disengaged, why do you think Black people are so loyal to the Democratic Party or have been?
I just think that they haven't really stepped out of it enough to see the results or lack thereof. It
Or
feels
stayed in
enough-
tune, maybe.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it's just you're sleepwalking because you have so many other issues as a Black person to think about first in this country before you get to
fact.
an election day.
That's a fact.
How am I going to feed my children? How am I going to stay safe if I get pulled over by a police officer?
Yeah.
How am I going to
Survive.
just expand myself? Like, where is
Growth, wealth.
the areas that I see myself represented? When we saw Barack Obama get elected as president, that did immense, intangible things for me in
Psyche.
terms of just seeing someone do it, even though I don't know what his politics did for me at the end of his presidency. But
Right.
just seeing a person do it makes you believe that it is possible. And another one could be that at least Democrats will acknowledge racism on the
Right.
surface.
I feel
They
seen.
may be behind closed doors
Yeah.
having the same thoughts as racist Republicans, but at least they verbally will acknowledge and say something like Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
A Republican will not.
They won't even see you.
I'm
That's why I
starting to
said, that's
respect
why I told you, Cindy, it's not about necessarily, it may be detaching from Democratic Party, but it's not always about going to the Republican Party because you don't feel seen. So you have to be comfortable with a level of not being seen in order to even fit comfortably in that space and in that arena.
And I think lots of different types of people feel the same way about
Yeah.
different things. Working class folks, not seen because all parties are working for the elites.
Right.
Okay, they're working for the
They're
big
working for the
corporations.
wealthy. That's why with this tax cut, and just to take a break, we bounce around. This should be called ADHD juice because we bounce around here. Working for the wealthy and the elite, right? That's why I do think ultimately the Democratic Party is still the more favorable choice when it comes to Black people in general. I know this is an ongoing conversation, but I don't even,
Is it even possible though? Have you thought about how could, if you are going to identify as Black first, because I believe that's the main issue that is so hard to get out of any conversation.
Yeah.
Education, healthcare is going to always have a glaze over it. Is racial. So when we talk about Black being seen, if we were able to vote for either party that would benefit us in each election, you would have the competition then to say, all right, we can't just give lip service and say, we see you, Black person, we
I don't
love
know.
you.
I personally think Republicans
That
need
is
to
the criticism.
listen. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Republicans just simply don't work hard enough for the support of Black folk. I think that it's just looked at as it's not worth acknowledging. It's not worth the effort to spend time in those communities to explain who you are. And that was my criticism. I believe I spoke to a group of Florida lawmakers. This was like a couple of years ago. But I'm like, can you show up in Black neighborhoods? Can you spend time there instead of having all of these ideas and theories about why Black folk don't do this or that or the third? Why don't you spend time there and actually build relationships? But I guess it's just not important enough. Maybe not enough of us vote.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why we're looked at politically.
Yeah, if you look
You're not
at
a donor.
our, if you look
Yeah.
at our 12%, that could swing any election. Even if you took 8%, like most elections are decided by just a few.
But you're
percentages.
saying that 12% as if
They
all
all vote.
12% are
Exactly.
voting, and that's not the case because
And we have lower than that.
I'm sure.
in terms of
Only 8%.
I'm a big.
in terms of voting,
No, I mean in terms of Black people.
in
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of
Our
population.
percentage in Southwest Florida is lower than the state.
course.
So when you talk about that 8%, and you break that down to how many of that 8% are actually active voters, so there does become power in the vote when people
Right.
can show,
And-
hey, I consistently show up to the ballot box every 2 years, or I participate in community. But as long as that disconnect is there, I think we unsee ourselves. We take ourselves out of that scope of being seen and recognized. In I don't know. That's why I feel
But
torn on it. I feel torn on the issue.
Is one of my passions is motivation. Being a therapist and I was a sales rep, my whole career is built on figuring out why people do things. And a person will vote or they will do anything if they see a value and a benefit for them.
A
And
whip
it could-
vote.
But that's
with
where
it.
you
And
you
if
gotta
have a
look for
small
that
percent,
benefit.
if it's 2% the first year and they see momentum building, the next year maybe 3. Because I'm here today, you all inspired me to come out and get
Well,
out
that's
my
when it
comfort
becomes, but that's when it becomes such a show and a competition, and you politicians get accused of pandering and blah blah blah. Because you do have to put on quite a show to even get people to care, to get people to be concerned.
But
So,
I think
speak.
it's just value. It doesn't have to be a show. It's value. Like I see a result from based on what I did for you as a candidate. I see a result from it. And the only result that I've gotten personally from any politician since I was born was seeing a black man elected as president.
Yeah,
I cannot point to anything that's tangible. I know
that
there's
has been
maybe
that
certain-
significant. I agree. Seeing Obama, and that was the first president that was the first election I was old enough to vote in. Yeah, that's crazy, but
So it's not like
we don't see that all the time, and that's where representation is. If I see more black people involved, so it becomes this vicious cycle of what comes first: the voter or the goddamn policy or the
Look in
goddamn
Georgia,
person.
I just moved from Atlanta, so I was still around when I saw Herschel Walker versus Warnock, both black men. But Warnock's campaign he was Democrat, but he still felt conservative. He wasn't
So
just
he didn't
radical.
feel all willy-nilly out here.
And where Herschel Walker appeared to be a puppet, where he just didn't seem to be intelligent,
Okay.
but it was a runoff for a reason. He had a lot of
He
support
had a
for a reason.
lot of support, and
they're
that's,
starting to pay
I
attention,
think
like,
once
hey.
we see those results, that's when we really figure out, wow, this is how y'all really feel, huh? Why is this even such a tight race in the beginning? And so no matter what, no matter how you feel about people on the other side, you have to acknowledge them, especially when we see a runoff election like Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock, because again, that was a runoff with a man who appeared to be very conservative. He's a preacher in a lot of ways. So a lot of people say, oh, we can identify with that. That must mean he respects family. He respects all of these
Right.
other things, faith, and he's not just out here wild and crazy. But nevertheless, wow.
So some data just recently came out about Florida elections. And because as you're saying, yes, we need to listen to people, you have to remember the calculation that politicians are doing.
Help
on the
me
other
understand.
side.
Help me understand.
It's about who turns out to vote and by how much. One of the reasons that you saw such a massive red wave in Florida,
Here's
nowhere
one-
else in the United
yeah,
States.
Yeah,
but
they
in
were
Florida.
predicting a red wave in the United States, and it was more like a red.
But it happened in Florida. We saw huge discrepancies, huge wins for Ron DeSantis over Charlie Crist. And it's because Democrats stayed home. And that's what the recent analysis came out, is that the Democrats just weren't compelled to show up to vote.
We weren't excited enough.
No.
Why
no one was
not?
excited.
Why do and that in and of itself is attractive.
Charlie is a nice man, but there was
But he was
nothing
too
about
mild.
him- Yeah, that
But here's the thing: that in and of itself is why people, I think, in Florida jumped on the red wave in Florida, because it was a spurt in other parts of the country. But people are attracted to the boldness. People are
Yes.
attracted to the one that lets it hang, that can show that power. But then you look at the amount of people that are outraged by policies like the AP African American course being blocked by Ron DeSantis. Like it makes you feel like, wow, where are we? Where are the people that feel that this is something wow? But then when it comes to election day, you see how many people surround us that just
because here's the thing. Among the voters that voted for Ron DeSantis, how many of them do you think knew or cared that he was going to turn around and ban African American AP history?
nobody knew it, but we could have predicted that. We can
Some
predict it.
people. But the people who you said that it's like, they're like, yeah, this guy, he's cool. He had a commercial, the jet,
Yeah.
a hot wife, he's so excited, he's so cool.
He's so bold.
Bold.
Yeah, same thing about Trump.
Exactly. and this is where messaging and marketing comes into, and the human psychology. We like that.
Yeah.
And here's the other part that's super crazy, is that when we're in times of difficulties, when there's a lot of fear or instability in our economy and our politics, which absolutely no one's going to disagree that we have been over the past few years, people who have a disposition towards being fearful, so people who have high anxiety and things like that, will vote most reliably for authoritarians.
Yeah.
And people who act authoritarian.
Yeah.
And there's some great research.
Especially
I know
when
you'll
they're,
love that.
yeah, because they make you feel
They
protected.
make you feel safe.
They make you feel like,
Reduces
okay,
your
when it comes
anxiety.
down to us versus them, my leader is going to go hard and
Right.
step hard.
So
And
I
so
don't care if they're going to ban AP African American Studies in high school. It doesn't matter.
as
But I
long as
know-
overall,
I know if I'm going to battle, which it feels like I'm going to go to battle, I know that Ron DeSantis is going to be right there.
versus like you said, somebody like Charlie Crist, who's very mild. But then I heard, but then I heard other Democrats talking about Nikki Fried at the time saying, oh, I don't like how feisty she is. I don't like how, and I'm like, man,
That's sexism.
right. They were saying, I don't like how she shouldn't do all the talking about her opponent and blah, blah, blah. Oh no, I think the candidate got it ultimately. And this goes back to that shucking and jiving and pandering piece that sometimes people get caught up in. You got to be attractive in terms of what you stand for. And when I say attractive, you have to be strong enough, bold enough, like cool enough. People want to feel, and that's again, shout out to you, Cindy, because you didn't allow people to push you into this bubble of meek and mild and hi guys, I'm just here with my legs closed tight and I'm just being all conservative. You stepped and you continue to step hard. And I think that I don't see why more people don't support you because of that, but it's coming. It's
They
coming.
do. They do. So let's talk about that, because actually in every race that I've run, I've outperformed. I've outraised. I beat the incumbent Democratic
You
nominee.
did.
And in 2022, I even outran all the state candidates. So
Go
Charlie
ahead.
Crist, 2 to 4 points on all the state candidates. And also, I was 1.3 percentage ahead of the predictions based on the
Definitely.
political science, right? That's because there's a difference between the voters and the political elite.
Yo, and there's a difference between the supporters and the voters too. That's what pisses me
Yes.
off.
And I'm gonna lay a bomb on
Man.
here. Okay. We have to acknowledge that the base of the Democratic Party right now, the largest amount of voters, the largest amount of donors are older white people. And that's why you're getting so many things wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're coming from a different era when it comes to sexism. And I faced it over and over again. They come from a different era on racism. They're coming from that era where it's colorblind.
If I had $1 for every time a white person said, I don't see color, I'm like, baby, you ain't got to say that for me to be your friend. I might like you anyway. It's like almost that is the new thing for white folk to say is that I don't see color. I want you to see color.
Because it protects themselves, and it's a privilege. They're privileged, but it protects themselves from having to acknowledge or act on any systemic racism.
And sometimes I think they just don't want to answer for people who may have been more extreme or owned a couple of people back in the day. I don't think they want to be responsible for it. So by saying I don't see color, that kind of says I'm not like those other ones that do see color.
And this was popular in the 80s and 90s. That was the nouveau post-racial society.
Just quickly, when we talk about our fundamental developmental years of a child, when you grow up in a home where your parents were probably either racist or had just racist philosophies that they were surrounded by. It didn't have to be overt every day. I hate blacks, but if you saw your parents interact in a certain way with black people, it's in your subconscious to act the same way. Now, as your brain develops and you get to your prefrontal cortex up here at 25,
Prefrontal.
your conscious mind is telling you, yeah, it is not realistic to hate every black person based on their skin tone.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not smart. It's not something that I find joy in to oppress another group of people. But your subconscious is still there. It's more powerful than your conscious. So the things that you do come out as racist, even though you are consciously trying to be.
You trying not to
fair.
be, and this is why you see a lot of evangelical Christians voting that were so gung-ho about Trump. It's like, how can you be both? And that conversation has come up a lot too, because the seed may be there, and going back to roots, you will vote leaning in one direction or another. But even though you may say, you're right, I don't want to be associated with this. That is a little extreme to be enslaving people and all that stuff or oppressing people. Nevertheless, this conversation can go on and on.
And back to how to be an anti-racist, the Kendi book, he talks about that even as a Black man growing up, and his parents being working professionals in the 80s, 90s as in this trying to be post-racial. And so how do you deal with that, right? There's these certain contortions that you make to get along, and it takes work to undo them. And that's the thing.
Shout out to those that's doing the work.
Yeah, and
in different ways.
It's in your mind too. It's like you got to catch yourself on all these things that you've been programmed with because of what you saw around you. White people and Black people.
You better
growing up in
continue
racist
to
societies.
challenge yourself and continue to extend and educate yourself. As we wrap it up tonight, tell the people how they can find you, how they can connect with you.
I am on Facebook at Chuck Rhodes, RHODES, and you can also look up my website, which we'll get on. The Dating Cookbook has a website, and you can also email me at thedatingcookbook@gmail.com.
And you can find a dating cookbook on Amazon. Get that book, check it out, and let us know how you feel about it. I'm gonna wrap us up tonight just by saying I love knowledge. That is one thing that gets me going and really cooks my grits well, is to be educated and because knowledge is truly power. I feel empowered. We love you and thank you for tuning in to The Juice. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. Good
This
night.
has been The Juice with
See you
Dr. Cindy
guys.
Vanier.
And Chantel Rhodes,
Our special guest, Chuck
my
Rhodes.
brother, Mr. Chuck Rhodes. All right.
Big Mouth Media. So thanks for joining us if you're watching us live, and make sure that you check out bigmouthmediafl.com. You can tune in to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Audible, it's all over.
Definitely.
And I don't want you to miss a thing. So if you did miss this broadcast here, you can get the video, the edited video, by becoming a foundation member of Big Mouth Media. You go to prices and plans for $50. We got this special
Only
deal.
$50?
$50 forever. And that's just getting us off the ground. If you become a
Come on,
foundation
support
member,
us.
$50, you get access to all the content. So
Right,
all Dr.
right.
Cindy Speaks, all Misinformational with Rebecca Jones, all the videos, Juice Fresh Talk. We got new videos coming on. Every week we're adding new. So if you become one of our foundational members, you help Big Mouth Media get off the ground, then you will get access to all that content for the future duration.
Let's do it.
And this is
$50.
gonna get big, so you're
This
gonna
is
wanna
only
jump on that.
$50. This is a seed planet.
It is.
All
Speaking
right.
of Seed, thank you to Seed and Bean.
Shout out to
Monday
Seed
for
and
hosting us
Bean.
here. Make sure you
It's so
come.
lovely in here, man. Just come and hang out
and
with
get
us
coffee.
Thursday. Meet us here Thursdays about 5:30, 6
Yeah,
o'clock.
come get a
Let us
coffee.
know. You can hear us live and let us know if you want to be a guest on our show.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.